رب العالمين على أشرف العالمين سيدنا محمد الصلوات على أفضل العالمين سيدنا محمد الصلوات على أكمل العالمين سيدنا محمد الصلوات صلوات الله تعالى وملائكته وأنبيائه ورسله وجميع خلقه على محمد وعلى آل محمد عليهم السلام ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. ورضي الله تبارك وتعالى عن ساداتنا أصحاب رسول الله أجمعين وعن التابعين بهم بإحسان وعن الأئمة المجتهدين الماضين وعن العلماء المتقين وعن الأولياء الصالحين وعلى مشايخنا في الطريقة النقشبندية العالية قدس الله تعالى أرواحهم الزكية ونور الله تعالى أبرهتهم المباركة وعاد الله تعالى علينا من بركاتهم وفيوضاتهم دائما الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. إلى حضرة النبي صلى الله تعالى عليه وآله وسلم وعلى إخوانه من الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى العلماء المتقين وعلى الأولياء الصالحين وعلى مشايخنا في الطريقة النقشبندية العالية خاصة إلى روح إمام الطريقة وغوث الخليقة خواجة شهاب النقشبندي محمد بن ويس البخاري وسلطان الأولياء مولانا شيخ الدولة فارس الدارستاني وأستاذ أستاذنا خواجة عبد الخالق البجدواني وروحنا سيدنا شيخ سيد محمد ناظم عبد الحقاني وسائر ساداتنا صديق الله تعالى. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم 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 بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحان الله سلطان الله نبي محمد عليه السلام. 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 سبحان الله سلطان الله
سلطان الله الله نبي محمد عليه السلام سبحان الله الله سلطان الله الله نبي محمد عليه السلام سبحان الله سلطان الله نبي محمد عليه السلام عليه السلام عليه السلام عليه السلام عليه السلام الله يا جليل الله يا جليل الله 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 الله ذو الجلال الله ذو الجلال 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 الله الله ذو الجلال حسبنا الله ربنا الله 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 حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتحة اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد عليه السلام صلاة تدوم وتهدى إليه ممار الليالي وطول الدوام اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد عليه السلام أن تدوم وتهدى إليه ممار الليالي وطول الدوام.
Chapter 1 of Burda Shikha.
مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. آمن تذكر جيران به سلام مزجت دمعا جرى من مقلة بدم أم هبت الريح من تلقاء كاظمة وأومض البرق في الظلماء من نظام. فما لي عينيك إن قلت كفاها متى وما لقلبك إن قلت استفيق يهيب. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. أيحسب الصرب أن الحب منكتم ما بينهم سجين منه ومضطرب. لولا الهوى لم تغرق دمعا على ضلال ولا رقت لذكر الباني والعالم. فكيف تنكر حبا بعدما شهدت به عليك عدول الدمع والسقم. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. وأثبت الوجد خطي عبرات وظلا مثل المهار
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. We continue today with part 2 of the Khatam Sharif in honor of Imam al-Azam, Imam Abu Hanifa radiyallahu anhu. We hold today's gathering with the intention that wherever a beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, then Allah's mercy descends upon those places. As was mentioned last week, the Prophet ﷺ said in a dream that the very reason for Imam al-Azam's birth was to revive his sunnah. What we learned about his life so far shows that he had no personal desires, and the qualities and virtues he had make him nothing but a wonder of Allah. Imam Shafi'i radiallahu anhu, he says, the whole ummah owes a debt to Abu Hanifa. We will share some stories which will help us understand the nature of Imam al-Azam and understand how his life was a selfless pursuit of service underpinned by the immense integrity and piety. Once, Imam al-Azam, he purchased a roll of fabric to sell, but he later found out that cloth was damaged. So he instructed his business partner to inform any potential buyer of this particular defect and to sell it at a reduced price. However, his business partner was probably a bit like us, he forgot in one ear or the other. So during the day, he sold the cloth and he forgot to inform the buyer of this particular defect. When Imam al-Azam found out, he told him that all the earnings of that day donate them to the poor and needy. So the business partner said, look, we'll only take the profit from this particular deal and we'll give that to the charity. Imam al-Azam said, as the profit money from the fabric is mixed with the rest of the money, I cannot touch any of it. So doubt has been introduced into this matter. On another occasion, Imam al-Azam, he asked about the whereabouts of a particular young man. And this surprised some of the students of Imam al-Azam because that young man, he's a bit of a wild character. He would make a lot of noise and play musical instruments next to where they used to have their lesson. And the students, they were glad that, today there's no noise coming from that area. So Imam al-Azam asked the wife of that young man, and she informed them that he was in debt, and because he owed a substantial amount of money, he had been imprisoned. So Imam al-Azam immediately went to the prison and paid off his debt and waited there until he was released. As they walked back with the young man, he felt ashamed. And Imam al-Azam joked with him saying, our brother, where are the songs? Sing and cheer us up. After this incident, the young man, he became a student of Imam al-Azam. The neighbor of Imam al-Azam, he was a Zoroastrian. And after Imam al-Azam passed away, this neighbor, his daughter, she said to him, oh father, there used to be a tree in the neighbor's house. Where's that gone? And the father replied, daughter, that was not a tree. That was Abu Hanifa when he was praying all night. Despite his discreetness in his worship, it was known that Imam al-Azam prayed Isha and Fajr with the same wudu for over 40 years, and that he would finish the entire Quran in one night. Imam al-Azam also possessed firasa, insight. Once a young man, he came and he sat next to Imam al-Azam and he performed wudu. As each drop of water fell from this young man, Imam al-Azam could see the sins that he had committed. And after they said to him, my son, stay away from these sinful acts. Inshallah, we've had a very brief glimpse into the personality of Imam al-Azam, and later inshallah you will hear and we'll come to appreciate his contribution to Islam, which still continues to this day. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم.
نوا سنتا ہے التجا سب کی خدا سنتا ہے. ہم کے بندے लगदा तेरा जेठ कतरा जेठ कतरा बख्श मैनू कम बन जांदा मेरा लेकिन तेरी रहमत का लेकिन तेरी रहमत का लेकिन तेरी रहमत का लेकिन तेरी रहमत का तलबगार मौला मौला लेकिन तेरी रहमत का अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि व सल्लिम व बारिक अलैहि व अला आलिहि अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व अला आलि मुहम्मद व सल्लिम अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व अला आलि मुहम्मद व सल्लिम अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व अला आलि मुहम्मद व सल्लिम.
He wrote a poem in praise of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the poem became known as al-Qasidatu al-Nu'maniyya fi madh khayr al-bariyya. And the story behind this qasida is that Imam Abu Hanifa, he wrote this poem obviously for the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he had intention to present it to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. On one of his visits to Medina Sharif, he arrived in the mosque and he heard the muazzin reading this exact poem. So he was shocked. How does he know this poem? That only I wrote it and nobody, I've not told anyone about it. So he waited for the muazzin to finish. And then he met the muazzin and he said to him that, whose poem did you just recite? And the muazzin said, Abu Hanifa's. So he said, do you know Abu Hanifa? He said, no, I don't know him. So he said, where did you get this poem from? He said, last night in a dream, I heard him reciting this poem in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, and so I memorized it. And Imam al-Azam, when he heard this incident, he began to cry. So just for barakah, we're going to recite just a few verses from this poem, inshallah.
Sallallahu ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, sallallahu ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, sallallahu ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, ya Sayyid al-Sadat.
يا سيد السادات جئتك قاصدا أرجو على محمد أرجو رضاك وأحتمي بحماك أنت الذي من نور البدر تسال والشمس مشرقة من O Supreme Master, to you I have come intentfully, seeking your refuge and your pleasure. O greatest of creation, by God I hold within me a yearning heart that does not know a longing other than you. By your eminence, in you I am invested, and God knows surely I love you. Were it not for you, no human would have been created, nay, no entirety of creation would have seen existence. From your light, the moon takes its gleam, and the sun rises. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, sallallahu ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Madad, 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 ya Sayyidi, madad, madad, ya Rasulallah, madad, ya Siddiq, madad, ya Farisi, madad, ya Qasim, madad, ya Sadiq, madad, ya Bastami, madad, ya Kharqani, madad, ya Farhadi, madad, ya Hamdani, madad, ya Khawaru, madad, ya Mujdawani, madad, ya Arifu, madad, ya Farlawi, madad, ya Ramitani, madad, ya Samasi, madad, ya Mir Kula, madad, ya Shahid Shaban, madad, ya Attalu, madad, ya Sharafi, madad, ya Hararu, madad, ya Bukhari, madad, ya Darwishu, madad, ya Inkangi, madad, ya Habibillah, madad, ya Faruqi, madad, ya Ma'sum, madad, ya Sayfuddin, madad, ya Mad'uni, madad, ya Shamsuddin, madad, ya Dahlawi, madad, ya Baghdadi, madad, ya Ismail, madad, ya Khas Muhammad, madad, ya Radi, madad, ya Urmuki, madad,
صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they say in the Hadith Sharif that even if knowledge was suspended on the highest parts of the sky, the Persians would attain it. So there's no doubt from this Hadith Sharif that Imam al-Azam, they are amongst the most noble Persian scholars. There are also some scholars who say that this Hadith is specifically about Imam al-Azam. Now we know that Imam al-Azam, they were blessed even before their birth. When their father was born, he was taken in his infancy to Sayyidina Ali. And Sayyidina Ali, they blessed the child. They put their hand over his head, and then they said, "Oh Allah, bless his lineage." Later, when his mother gave birth, the child was named Nu'man ibn Thabit. But he became known as Abu Hanifa. And this was an account of his steadfastness and his firm Islamic belief. There are some fabrications that allege that his name is Abu Hanifa because he had a daughter called Hanifa. However, this is incorrect. He only had one son, whom he named Hamad after his teacher Sheikh Hamad. Now last week we learnt about his early life, and we also listened to accounts of how he was as a merchant. Now during his teenage years he performed Hajj, and also during that time he was blessed because he met the Sahaba. So he met companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and that means he is in the next generation of Muslims, so he has the rank of the Tabi'een. Now continuing from last week, when Imam Shabi stopped Imam al-Azam in the marketplace, he advised him to seek knowledge. And then he gave him an instruction. He said, you need to learn theology, ilm al-kalam. Now this is a science that normally is reserved for later on for people to learn. But Imam al-Azam was instructed to learn it from the start. Now it wasn't that easy that he could just go to any halqa there. For this he had to leave Kufa and he had to travel to Basra. And he stayed there for 2 years. Now when he returned to Kufa, a woman approached him and she asked him about a masla. So he listened to a problem and he gave her an answer. But she wasn't happy with the answer that she got. So she then went to Sheikh Hamad bin Sulaiman, another scholar in Kufa. And he gave a different answer and she was much happier with that. She didn't leave it at that, she then returned to Imam Abu Hanifa. He said to him that your answer, it was complete and utter, it didn't make sense. I got an answer from Sheikh Hamad and it was easy for me to understand. Now if that was any one of us, we'd say, why have you come back? Why are you rubbing salt in the wound? But that's not the personality of Imam al-Azam. They saw this as an opportunity. They immediately went straight away, they thanked her and they went to the study circle of Sheikh Hamad. And that thirst for knowledge, it led to them becoming the most prominent student of Sheikh Hamad. They would sit on the right hand side. And along with the studies, they did a lot of hidmah for the Sheikh. And this wasn't that the Sheikh said to them, oh, can you do this for me, can you do that? It was their own initiative. They looked after all the household affairs, and that was just without being asked. There then came a point when Imam al-Azam started thinking, should he now begin to teach? So he had this thought, and because he had good adab, he said, right, I'll go to Sheikh Hamad and ask for permission. But when he arrived in the presence, he felt this immense pain in his heart, that how can I leave the presence of my teacher? So he said no to himself, and he stayed with his teacher until his teacher passed away. Following that, all the students, they agreed that Imam al-Azam was the worthy successor. Now about him as a teacher, it is said, his intelligence is unmatched. He is a genius no matter what definition is given to the term genius. His ability to converse, convey and argue was so powerful that he never lost a debate. So he was an exceptional teacher, and he used many unusual methods to engage his students so that they could do critical analysis of many problems. And also he wasn't there saying that just listen to me, he would say to them, ask questions. Once this person, he was told by his own father that you need to get 4,000 questions from all different Islamic sciences, and you need to come and ask Imam Abu Hanifa about them. So he did this, and Imam al-Azam didn't turn around and reject it, saying, no, go away. They said, okay, give me your questions, and they answered each question successfully. At the end, they even thanked him, and they praised him for the difficulty of the questions. About their own students, they said that 28 of their students, they were capable of being qadis. Imam Zafar, he was one of their students, and he said, for 20 years I stayed with him, and whenever he gave advice, he didn't just rush it. He would make sure that the person who came, that they understood what advice was being given. And Imam Zafar, after Imam Abu Hanifa passed away, he was chosen by the students to be his successor. His other prominent students are Qadi Abu Yusuf and Imam Muhammad al-Shaybani. Now initially, Qadi Abu Yusuf came from quite a poor background, so when he came for his studies, his father, they were also saying that you need to work. So he couldn't always come to lessons. When Imam al-Azam found out about this, they said to Qadi Abu Yusuf, you continue coming to lessons, your family, household, everything will be taken care of. And they made sure of this. And eventually, later on, Qadi Abu Yusuf, he becomes the chief judge of Baghdad. Now it's these Imams that built upon the foundation left by Imam Abu Hanifa. They developed and organized the Hanafi school further. Now in this day and age, when we look at the science of Ahadith, there's some foolish people. They say that Imam al-Azam, he wasn't competent in Hadith and that he had no authority in this science. So what these foolish people, they fail to recognize that if we think about some of the most famous Hadith scholars, so Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, they must have had teachers. And so when you look at their teachers, they are the students of Imam Abu Hanifa's students. So there is a direct link there. Also the first Amir al-Mu'mineen of Hadith, Abdullah ibn Mubarak, he was a student, a direct student of Imam al-Azam. Wherever he sat, he praised his teacher and he praised his knowledge in Hadith. Now once, there was an Imam who was a scholar in Hadith, and Imam al-Azam, they were a student. And a person came to him and asked the question, and the Imam, he became stuck. As in, what answer do I give? They couldn't find an answer. Now Imam al-Azam, because they have such great adab, they didn't even speak. They sat there quietly, and then the teacher, they said to him, do you know the answer? Can you shed light on this matter? And so Imam al-Azam, they gave an answer that left the teacher amazed. And they said, where did you learn such knowledge from? And Imam al-Azam, they explained that this is from the Hadith that I've been taught. And so the teacher, they remarked, they said about themselves, we are like pharmacists. We have the medicine, but you, the fuqaha, you are like the doctors. You're the ones who know the remedy. And so the influence of Imam al-Azam on fiqh is significant. And his approach, it's not an invention or anything, it's based on the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When Muaz ibn Jabal, he was appointed the Qadi of Yemen, he said, he was asked, how will you decide on matters? He said, I'd first consult the Quran, then the Sunnah, and if I don't find an answer, then I will use intellect to arrive at a solution. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said to him, this is the correct approach. And this was the approach of Imam Abu Hanifa. He relied on the Quran, the Sunnah, the Ijma, so the consensus of the scholars, and intellect. So he established a committee of scholars. They would discuss matters and then they would come to a ruling. And this contribution to fiqh, it then continues with the other schools. Now, apart from fiqh, and I mentioned about the injustice of Hadith Sharif, that what people say about Imam al-Azam, there's also, if we think about the Tasawwuf, about Sufism. So in Sufism, where do we hear about the name of Imam al-Azam? How many people remember them in that way? Yet, that's an injustice to their legacy, because they are eternally linked to Sufism. Now, some people, they think that fiqh is different to Sufism. One is spirituality, the other is devoid. But that's not the case. Imam al-Ghazali says that it's necessary that a mujtahid, that he is a darwish, that he does not desire wealth or authority. The purpose of the mujtahid is to make things easy for the ummah. And when we look at Imam al-Azam's life, this is what he did. He was uncorrupted by wealth. He endured persecution and torture because he didn't take on leading positions of influence. And so the four Imams of fiqh, they are part They have the rank of the awliya Allah. They have all the qualities that are needed. And in Tazkarat al-Awliya, Shaykh Fariduddin Attar, he mentions the names of all 4 Imams of fiqh. This gives a clear indication that the Aqidah of the previous generations was to accept all the Imams as the rank of sainthood. Now, some people, they try to compare the awliya Allah to the Imams. And again, that's something that cannot be done, because all the awliya Allah, they are followers of fiqh. So they are followers of these Imams. They're not the leaders of the Imams. So the Khwaja Grand Masters, what they say about this is that we wish that we die on the Aqidah of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. We do not want any rank or any spiritual station. This is what we desire. And the reason for this elevated rank is that these Imams, they have to make matters easy for the Ummah. So they do this by having an immense connection to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when we look at Imam al-Azam's life, this connection was due to how much love they had for the Ahlul Bayt. Now, we mentioned about that Sayyidina Ali, they had a link to them even before their birth. Through their own teachers, they had 3 connections to them. And then during their lifetime, they had connection to Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, the grandson of Imam Hussain al-Islam in Medina Sharif. And when they visited them, they asked them about how you come to your rulings, and they were happy and content when Imam al-Azam mentioned how he made rulings. He was also a student of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq and Imam Zayd ibn Ali. It's said that he likely took bay'ah at the hands of Imam Zayd. Now, despite this high rank and acceptance by people, he was so discreet about his worship. On one occasion, he was in a mosque, he had prayed Isha, he recited a verse which had immense impact on his heart. He started crying. So it was Isha time, and after that, the gatekeeper, he locked the mosque. When he came back at the Hajjat time, they were still there in the same place and they were still crying. They told him that you don't tell this to other people. So when we look at the impact also then on Sufi tariqas of today, so the Chishtiya tariqa, if you look at the 2 early grandmasters there, Fudail ibn Iyad and Ibrahim bin Adham, they are the direct students. So we've previously done Khatam Sharif on Fudail ibn Iyad, and it was the topic of Tawbah, sincere repentance. So after that, he settled in Makkah Sharif, and he became the custodian of the Kaaba Sharif. He was also a hadith master, yet he's a student of Imam Abu Hanifa. Sheikh Ibrahim bin Adham, they are the successor of Fudail ibn Iyad. Yet once they came to the study circle of Imam al-Azam. So they were former king of both, but when they came there, they were dressed in rags. And all the students there, they didn't give him time of the day. Yeah, they just ignored him and they thought, who's this person? Look how he's dressed and everything. But when Imam al-Azam saw Sheikh Ibrahim bin Adham, they addressed him as Sayyidina Ibrahim bin Adham. So this left all the students, they were like, why is our teacher referring to him as that? So obviously, like it was mentioned in the introduction, they had firasa, they had insight, and they knew that Sheikh Ibrahim bin Adham, his level of spirituality. So they said to the student that this man, he is always occupied in the remembrance of Allah Almighty. I respect him for his devotion towards Allah. Now, Sheikh Ibrahim bin Adham, they got this praise, but they were aware themselves that they had to make this journey as part of the spiritual path. So they were aware of the rank of Imam al-Azam. One of the other great spiritual masters who has a close connection to him and is part of the Qadriya order is Dawood at-Tai. He was a direct student of Imam al-Azam, and there's many stories about him, about his piety. Yet he remained a student of Imam al-Azam for 20 years. About his teacher, he says, Imam al-Azam was the star from whom you can gain guidance. At no point did he stop practicing or fearing God. He had taqwa, the highest form of awareness of Allah. So today, when we look at all major tariqas, Imam al-Azam's influence is there. Whether it be founders of the tariqa like Shah Naqshband, Mulana Jalaluddin Rumi, they are his followers. The master of Imam Rabbani, Khwaja Muhammad Baqi Billah, he also followed the Hanafi fiqh. And he was very adherent to the Sunnah, and once he started reading that Surah Fatiha, that there's numerous hadith that you can recite it behind the Imam. So he decided to do this. That night, and this is what Haji Muhammad Baqi Billah narrates, he says, Imam al-Azam came in a dream and he said, "You've acted against my ruling. Do you not know how many of the awliya Allah in this ummah follow my ruling?" And then he listed the names of many awliya Allah. So Haji Muhammad Baqi Billah, they said, at that moment I immediately apologized, I felt ashamed and said, never do this again. So when we think about the rank of Imam al-Azam, we have to realize they are a master of grandmasters. So their teachings, they're still there in all Sufi tariqas today. Now once Imam al-Azam, when they went to Medina Sharif, they presented their greetings to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They said that you are the leader of all messengers. And instantly they had the reply, and peace be upon you, the leader of the Muslims. Now during the Abbasid period, Imam al-Azam, he was arrested by the Khalif Mansur, and this was due to his support for the Ahlul Bayt. And his position never swayed. He kept firm on his belief, and he was then poisoned. When this effect of this poison took place, the Imam, he was in sujood, in prostration. So it's speculated that it was the Khalif Mansur who may have poisoned the Imam. But Imam al-Azam, he lived his life with unwavering loyalty, service and attachment to the Ahlul Bayt, and that was his ultimate sacrifice. Now Data Ganjbakhsh Ali Ajwari, the patron saint of the Indian subcontinent, he was also a follower of Hanafi fiqh. And he mentions this dream that he had. He said that I had a dream that I entered Makkah Sharif and I approached the gate near where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's birthplace was. And I saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they were holding a baby in their lap. But I was confused because this baby had white hair. When I greeted Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they said to me, "Do you not recognize your Imam? This is Abu Hanifa." So they then mentioned that I understood from that dream that Imam al-Azam, he is being nurtured by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they understood that, they said that we are privileged to be his followers. So we should always show gratitude to Imam al-Azam. We should be grateful for Allah Almighty that He has given us the honor to remember Him, the opportunity to talk about Him for the last 2 weeks. We should also ask for forgiveness for our shortcomings, because the legacy of Imam al-Azam is unmatched. It's everlasting. Whichever branch you look at, whichever Islamic science, his impact is still living there today. Al-Fatiha.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم يا قاضي الحاجات بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم يا كافي المهمات بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم يا رافع الدرجات يا رافع الدرجات بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم يا حل المشكلات يا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم يا دافع البليات يا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم يا شافي الأمراض يا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم يا مسبب الأسباب يا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم يا مجيب الدعوات يا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم يا أرحم الراحمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله على حبيبه محمد وآله وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا فاتحة اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد